Let's see what Jesus has to say to us today. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and what a ride you are having right now. We understand that there is a lot of fear circulating around your planet. But we do want to remind you that 3 months ago, there was a lot of fear circulating about around your planet about another subject. And 3 months before that, there was a lot of fear circulating around the planet about another subject. The culture has been systematically pumped up into, we will say, primed with a deep state of fear. So what you're seeing in people's reactions and in your own responses to what's going on is what you've been putting in your mind for the last few years. Now, our dear one is very, very calm. She doesn't have fear about what's coming because she has been listening to our guidance. And for example, in that decision-making process that she mentioned about moving, she was trained enough to know that there was 2 messages coming to her. One from the conditioned mind, which is go to a city, it's more fun, you'll be busier, there's lots of things to do, which is how all of you are conditioned. And then there is deeper guidance. Most, as you see when you look at your society, something like 90% of your population is urban. And that is because of the conditioning programs and the indoctrinations that you have all been through, that gardening is not something to do. It will, as we say, wreck your manicure, and it will wreck your manicure. But now those of you with nice manicures are going to be changing your value system. That's what this is all about. You are in the throes of the intensification of the ascension process. Now, if you listen to the mainstream media, which we have suggested ad nauseum that you do not, then you will be in fear. Those of you that are listening to the mainstream media have not turned it off, have been primed with fear, and so that's what you're going to feel. There are many of you, however, that have been following this work for some time, that are curious, that are, we will say, discerning and preparing yourself for the possibility that perhaps the stores will be closed or the banks will be closed or there won't be any gas stations open. You have set your mind to such a frequency that you are expecting a transformative time. Now, we want you to go beneath the form here. We want you to go beneath the form and look at what you're doing. You are spending more time with loved ones. You are slowing down. You are feeling things. You are becoming aware of your weaknesses. You're becoming aware of the decisions that you've made that maybe aren't the most appropriate or the most beneficial to the comfort and care of your immediate environment, your family, your community. And this is what a 5D society looks like. It is filled with people who are making loving decisions all the time, loving decisions for themselves in terms of healthy food preparation and choices, following their guidance, choosing to be engaged in behaviors that they enjoy. But not only that, that's where it begins, where you begin the love chain of events, if you will. You're the first domino that knocks over the next domino. And when you have been making some of these changes over the years, what you're seeing is that your life has slowly made a different trajectory. It has gone perhaps from an urban environment to a rural environment. You have gone from eating junk food to eating organic food. You've been going on this journey towards a higher frequency. As we have said, everything you haven't yet dealt with is going to come up and it's not going to go away. You will remember us saying this to you not very long ago and quite frequently. Whatever you haven't dealt with yet is going to get more intense and it's not going to go away. That is what you are in right now. You are all faced with those aspects of your life your financial decisions, your investments in whatever way you determine investments to be. What have you been investing your time in? What have you been investing your wealth in? What have you been investing your love in? And that is what you are sitting with right now. For all of you that are in isolation or lockdown, whatever you want to call it, you are sitting with the decisions that you have made. And there are some beings in this group that have made tremendous decisions, that have taken their pension funds out of the stock market and invested it in their property, invested it in self-sufficiency. Those beings are not running scared. They are, we will say, a little chest puffed up. And that is okay, because they have used their discernment and they have been listening and acting upon the advice that we have given. Now, this is not to say that those of you that have not yet done that are bad. That's not what we're saying. Remember this idea of we are all on one road. Some are just further along than others. Some are just further along than others. Some of you have been educating yourselves very, very deeply in alternative media that is giving a different point of view of what is happening right now. And for those beings, they, generally speaking, are much more excited about what's happening, because they understand that your society was careening towards a precipice of self-destruction. And this is a very, very important topic for you all to consider at this time. That the fear that was arising in the environmental movement that was on the streets not so long ago, what was the general desire of all those people? Hundreds of millions of people out on the street. We can't keep living like this. We're destroying our beautiful planet. This is not sustainable. We want to draw your attention to the power of the collective. We want to draw your attention to what was happening 6 months ago. What was happening on the streets? Everyone saying we must change. Everyone saying we can't keep going like this. Somebody is leading us into destruction. And we're talking about the general frequency of the society and the transnational corporations and global governments that have been making decisions that are very, very unloving. So what you have had in demonstration on your planet over the last few years is 3D, which is that materialism at any cost, capitalism without restraint. And you have had a burgeoning grassroots movement that is seeing the writing on the wall. We give you an image of a herd of lemmings heading towards a cliff, and they just keep going over and over and over. There is this group think that has been cultivated in this society through your mass media systems and movies that has primed the pump for catastrophe, that has primed the pump for pandemic. Just look at a few of the movie titles that you see coming up time and time again. A devastating virus hits Earth and the zombie apocalypse is upon you. Well, that is a priming program that has been used to cultivate fear. But what you have happening now, and we want to reassure you of this, is that you have a rapid escalation of your frequencies going on because you have been made to stop, because you have been made to stay home, because you have been made to consider everything that you have done and invested in that has led you to this point. Very few people will do that voluntarily. Many of you have done it voluntarily because you are doing A Course in Miracles, and that's exactly what it asks you to do. It asks you to let go of the valueless and keep only the valuable. And many of you have simplified your lives. Many of you have focused on things that you love. Many of you have purchased things that are going to be very, very valuable to you during this time. But what we want you to do is to step above the form and look at the overview. Look at what is actually happening here. People are slowing down, and every single person that is slowing down in this global shutdown is going to go through the process that you have been going through voluntarily, your preemptive process of removing from your mind that which is unloving, retraining your minds into reciting loving principles, stepping back from war, stepping back from confrontation, asking yourself, why am I so upset at this? These are all of the things that you have been doing that are setting you up to be able to handle this transformation of your culture. This is a transformation of your culture. This is nothing to be terrified of. We would say you must reframe your thoughts about this and say the culture was careening to a precipice. It needed to be stopped, and what has stopped it is the collective consciousness of every human being on this planet. The form that it is taking is a deceptive one for most of you because it is seeming to be a negative. But the truth is the virus infection is not as drastic as it is being made out to be. And it is the spring, it is real. There are people who are sick. There are people who are getting infected. This happens every winter. This happens all the time. If you can actually see the number of beings that pass over each day on your planet, you would be astonished to see the number of deaths and births that happen on this planet every single day. But you have been oblivious of them. You've only been aware of the jumbo jet going down, or you've only been aware of the tsunami that has wiped out a whole bunch of people. You are aware of certain things, but you are not aware of the huge numbers of people that are passing away from flus and pneumonia and these kinds of things all the time, all the time. But it is being used for a particular purpose at this time. So yes, it is real. But we would prefer that you do not shake in your shoes for this entire time, because it is going to get more intense before it gets better. This is not a threat. This is just what's happening. Now, we are not permitted to tell you exactly what's transpiring. Why? Because the rules of free will on this planet apply still, which means that you must make your decisions based on your own consciousness. We are not allowed to give directives, move here, move there, change this job, change that job. We are here to encourage you to develop your own discernment, your own tuning into your own guidance system, because that is the rule of consciousness evolution. You know that idea that if you tell somebody that this is a bad idea, they have to do it for themselves to find out. That is indeed how you integrate information into your evolutionary program. So you are all having to decide here, am I going to sink into fear, or am I going to practice now all of these principles that we have been talking about for so very long? The reason this being started channeling in 2012 was so that a lot of people could hear this information. A lot of people could get those nudges and hints. A lot of people could be cultivating their connection to their guidance system. A lot of people could be learning to channel. A lot of people could be deleting that from their life that no longer serves them. So this 7.5 years since this being started transmitting this information has been for this time. It is for this time, and now all of you, any of you that are afraid, you have all the information you need. You do not need us to direct you any further. You know how to meditate. The lessons of A Course in Miracles train you from barely being able to focus on something for a minute to getting you to 20 or 30 minutes twice a day. If you have done the lessons, that is what you should be doing. You should be doing 20 to 30 minutes of meditation morning and night. If you're no longer going to work, that's going to be very, very easy for you. You must remain in presence. You must understand that if you are sitting in your living room and there's food in the fridge and you've got some lawn out the back or a balcony in front of you, you can begin to do something proactive, and nothing bad is actually happening except in your mind. The projection into the future, the stories that you are playing out in your mind. This is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. Remember, those are fantasies. And if you are becoming anxious because you're listening to those fantasies, you need to cultivate presence and look around and go, here I am. Nothing bad is happening. There are no marauders coming through the door. The fridge and the cupboards are full of food because I have been purchasing extra just in case. The gardening tools are ready to go. Let me get gardening. Let me get out in nature. This is taking place in the spring for a reason. It's taking place in the spring for a reason, so that you are able to cultivate, literally and metaphorically, that which is necessary. So you're being given the perfect scenario. For 7.5 years, we've been bringing this information through this being with all of the books. If you have not read the books yet, read the books. If you have them, read them again. These are chock full of the information that you are hungering for. Some of you that are relatively new to this group may not have read all the books. You may have read the 2 or 3 that appeal to you. You may not have read the sex book because it triggers some fear in you. Go and read these books. They have everything in them that you need. You do not need to panic. You do not need to grasp at anybody seeking information. Why do you think we asked this being to develop this Mighty Networks gathering? So that you had a dedicated space for information, videos, transcriptions, recordings. This is your resource. This is the place that you go here. The live streamings are, we say, cherry on top of the cake. You've got the cake, you've got the icing. This is just the cherry on top of the cake. The cherry is wonderful. The cherry is, pop it in your mouth, it's a little piece of paradise. But you have the cake. You have the substance of everything that we have taught. In the books, the recordings, the Course in Miracles, it is there. So we have given you some very practical advice over the years, and we would like you to listen to all of those live streams that are available on the Mighty Networks channel and make note of some of those things. For example, you are going to be stuck inside with people that you are used to avoiding all day long, whether it be a partner or your children home from school or an elderly parent that's now come to stay with you because they're scared. You are going to need your forgiveness practice. You are going to need to understand that your irritation at them or your anger at them or your frustration at them is something that you need to deal with using the techniques that we have given you, using the principles that the Course in Miracles has given you. So you are going to be put in stressful situations, and what we want you to understand is that this is for your spiritual evolution. This is these are the birthing pains of a new society. These are the birthing pains of a new society. So imagine back in the pioneer days when those beings that said, we want to leave the old world, we're going to the new world. We have had enough of the old ways. We want a new life. We want a new opportunity. And the courageous ones went across the oceans. The courageous ones stepped on those foreign shores, and they were not greeted with soft couches and fridges full of food. They were greeted with challenging environments, challenging times, and challenging people who already lived there. So if you can think of this as that kind of transition, going from the old world to the new world, look at the wealth, look at the beauty, look at the opportunities that coming to the new world brought for those pioneers. But there were challenges indeed, learning how to survive in what seemed like a very hostile environment, even though it was abundant with game and fish and new foods. All of those things were there, but what did they have to do? They had to learn new skills. They had to push themselves to use their human ingenuity, and their physical stamina had to be used to cut down trees and build log cabins. So if you think about what drove them, though, what drove those pioneers, what made them do that, it was a sickness with the old world, the overcrowded cities, the disease, the rats, the poverty, the old system of governance. That is what drove them to dig deep and to apply those principles to their lives. And they indeed managed to reap tremendous rewards for that. The experience that they had was at times terrifying. The experiences at times were invigorating and aided in their evolution. You must keep in mind that this is about your evolution now. This is not about your retirement fund. This is not about your holidays. This is not about any of those things. This is about your spiritual evolution. You are being given the opportunity to dig deep, to practice these principles, and to step up from 3D into 5D. Now, somebody asked a question, what happened to 4D? Well, 4D is the bridge to 5D, between 3 and 5D, and 4D is love. That is the bridge. This is the fourth chakra, your heart chakra. That is the bridge from the lower three chakras, which is security and survival, sex, and power. Those are the lower three chakras, and that is where your society has been functioning from for a very long time. And this spiritual revolution that's been taking place is raising up the frequency from survival, sex, money, and power through the heart into the higher realms of self-expression, vision, love, and connection to all that is. So the heart, the 4D is love. So that's the ladder that you climb from 3D to 5D. It is the ladder of love, and that's what we've been talking and teaching to you for these many years now. So when you are in this pressure cooker that is turning up the heat on all of you, this is what we want you to remember. It is going to be doing what you love and being loving that is going to get you through this. And by loving, we don't mean sacrificing, we don't mean putting yourself last. What we mean is be loving and ask yourself, why am I so upset? Why am I so irritated with this person? Why am I so frustrated? We can tell you that there are parents who have not been spending any time with their children for a long time. They have been so busy shuffling them off to school, shuffling them off to this activity and that activity, that these beings being in the house 24/7, day after day, is a shock to them. And this is something that your society must look at. You ship your children off for somebody else to train, and they train them the way they want them trained. So this is going to be a very, very steep learning curve for many of you that are parents, because you have been used to somebody else doing the job of raising your children. And the nuclear family setup is a very inefficient one, because you get tired. You get tired of cooking the meals. You get tired of being the one that has to read all the stories. You get tired of being the one that has to do everything. What you are going to begin to realize in this isolation process is that this is not the best design for really surviving. It would be much better to have some aunties and uncles around and cousins for your children to play with. And so what's going to happen through these coming months is that you are going to begin to reassess your value system in a very, very profound way. You are going to realize what you can live without. You are going to realize what is mandatory and what you must learn to manage. and you are going to be learning things that a healthy society would have taught you when you were young. So be prepared for these challenges. Understand that there are going to be times when you are overwhelmed because you are just not used to being in the house all day. You're used to stopping at Starbucks for your coffee in the morning, heading off to work, being on your phone all the time. There are many of you that have these kinds of jobs, or there are people that have simple service work jobs, or they own a business and they are seeing that they cannot keep the doors open, and the month to month, living from month to month is suddenly becoming very, very apparent. So we want to remind you that your evolutionary journey is what you wanted. That's why you're here. So make sure that you're telling yourself that story. I'm here because I wanted to be here. I'm here because I needed to learn how to do some things that I didn't know how to do, and I'm going to learn them now. I came here, and when I arrived, my mind was unmanageable. I've been given these tools to manage my mind. Let me now use these tools to manage my mind. Let me listen to my guidance that tells me how to handle myself here. Some of you are going to be evicting yourselves from your house on a regular basis. You're going to be saying, you guys are too much for me. I have to go for a walk. And this is going to be, that's okay. As long as you're not going to be thrown in jail for going for a walk, there is going to come a time in the next, we will say 30 days, where restrictions are going to be significant. And they're going to be significant for a few weeks. And we want you to be aware of that, because the form that is playing out on your planet right now requires that. There is a transference of power that is happening on your planet that requires everyone to be off the streets for various reasons. We will leave it there. Now, there are some of you that will be clamoring for information. Tell us, tell us, tell us. And we're not going to go into those specifics. What we want you to understand is that you have everything you need now to manage this situation. Your food supplies are still flowing. Your gasoline supplies are still flowing. Your electricity is still on. Your internet is still on for now. There may well be a break in your internet service, but it is not going to be permanent. So for those of you that are really hooked into your internet, that time period, which will be, we will say, less than a month in duration, will need to dig deep then, because many of you are using this as you are using the internet as your soother. So when that happens, dig deep. Do that which you know you can do. Write, paint, garden. Do the things that you can do given the limiting structures that have been imposed upon you. What's going to induce suffering is a projection into the future. What is going to cause suffering is you saying, I'm never going to have this. It's never going to be this way again. We're going to lose everything. That will make you suffer. And so for all of you that are listening to this, we want you to follow that feeling self. Your guidance system, remember, back to basics, your guidance system is tuned into truth and love. And when you're on track, you feel relaxed, calm, content, creative, happy. You are feeling good. When you are off track, as soon as your mind leaves the present moment and starts to, oh, well, I should have done this in the past. I knew I should have moved. I knew I should have done that. Or it goes into the future. What's this going to look like? Playing out fictitious scenarios in your mind, making stuff up. And remember, what are you going to use as your recipe for making stuff up? Every single movie you've ever seen. What movies have you been watching? What information have you been putting into your mind? So remember that when you see scenarios playing out in your mind, think, have I watched a movie like that? Oh yes, I watched that movie Contagion last year. Oh yes, I watched that movie San Andreas a couple of years ago. Look at the images that I've got in my mind. That's where they're coming from. Do not be deceived by them. Do not be drawn into them. Come back to the present moment. As soon as you feel yourself going into anxiety, come back to the present moment and ask yourself, what can I do? Okay, I've got a lot of canned goods in the fridge, canned goods in the cupboard. I'm going to go out, pick some kale. I'm going to make my family a beautiful meal with what we have. That's what I'm going to do. It's something I can do now. It's loving, it's kind, it's presence. Presence, presence, presence is what's going to save you from suffering. So for every one of you that came to this meeting today in a state of anxiety, in a state of fear, that means that you have been going into the future. You've been listening to the stories telling you what the future is going to be in a negative way. We're giving you some hints about the future, but we are not scaring you. We are giving you a few little heads up so that you can prepare yourself mentally and emotionally to be calm then, not to panic, not to fear, not to think the sky is falling. Your feelings are guiding you as to how well you're doing your Course in Miracles practice. We are going to take a short break, let this one have a drink, and we will return shortly. Oh, woo! Yes, I know I don't have coronavirus. I have a tickle. Woo. Okay, let me read some of your comments here. Our schools are closed as well, and I'm loving that I get homeschool my little one without the judgment that can come with it. That's my peeps. It's so exciting. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to suggest that you guys post some questions in the chat. Please try and keep them out of the realm of, what foods should I buy and put in the cupboard. Let's try and keep it a little bit more general so that it's helpful for everyone. And we will do some Q&A from the people attending right now. If we can manifest something that was not there before, can the billions of people who believe that CV is real create it and unleash it on the world? That's a good question. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and I always open with that to remind you that you are blessed beings indeed. What you're seeing playing out is a result of your collective consciousness. You are seeing the split mind playing out. You are seeing the battle of duality playing out here. So for all of those movies that terrify, for all of those disaster blockbusters that draw millions of people in one weekend to see, for all of those superhero movies where the good is battling evil, what you have playing out is exactly what you have wanted. Whatever the society has been focusing on, that is what is happening. And that is what you are seeing. So you really are already seeing a creation of this. Things like this do not come into manifestation. A global event does not come into manifestation unless there is a global complicity in that sense. So do not think that your creative powers have been turned off and now they're turned on. They have been going for a very long, long time. And those of you that have been shifting your frequency, shifting your priorities, letting go of the value list, changing your values, you can see how your lives have been put on a trajectory that is beneficial. So you have been doing this. You have already been doing this. And all of the fear mongering, all of the watching movies of death, or watching the Night of the Living Dead and the zombie movies and all of these things, these are what have cultivated this this split that you're seeing. What is the split that you're seeing is not apparent to you if you are on mainstream media. The split is not apparent, but for those of you that have removed yourself from those realms, those of you that have been immersing yourself in spiritual practice, you are beginning to see that there is a tremendous grassroots movement afoot of beings who want to be free of the oppressive regimes of this planet, free of the fear, free of the indoctrinations. So we want you to see that as well. We see it energetically. You may not see it because it's a grassroots movement, but you are beginning to see, you were beginning to see the demonstrations in the streets of people saying, this government is not treating us fairly, this system is not treating us fairly, this system is taking us to the brink of extinction. And we will remind you that you really are not on the brink of extinction. There is a lot of you on this planet, so do not worry about that. You're going to be fine in that sense. The population is going to be transformed, however, and that is a good thing. So you have two factions. You have the material, those that are materialistic and in the lower realms of 3D that have been in that violent, materialistic, grasping, competitive mode. And then you have those beings that have been systematically going up, 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 trying to be loving, trying to be more forgiving, letting things go, moving into the country, these kinds of things. What you've got is a dualistic play going on here. Remember, this is a dualistic world, and there is always the light and the dark in the dualistic world. We bring to mind again the idea of the yin-yang symbol, but the dark and the light create the whole. That's what you're seeing. It's a balancing game. But what has happened since the 2012 restrictions have been lifted from the Prime Directive has been modified in that sense. The Prime Directive is that no interference can happen. 2012, the Prime Directive was altered a little, and there was an intervention was allowed to be made because of the programming on your planet that is taking away people's free will. This is the fundamental thing that is important for you to understand, is that once you're programmed from the time you're little to do certain things, you essentially lose free will. When you lose free will, your spiritual evolution grinds to a halt, and you're just wasting time doing time. And so the interventions that are taking place are exceptional in that sense. And this event that you're going through is a part of that intervention, but it is not, the part that is the intervention is not easy for you to see. This is one of the reasons why we want to tell you about it, so that you are not only seeing the shadow, you are also seeing the light. Remember the yin and yang symbol. There is light in the darkness and darkness in the light. So the lightness that you're seeing seemingly are the news stations who claim to be telling you things for your own good. There's a little bit of darkness in there. And when you see the darkness, the restrictions, the limitations, there is a little bit of lightness in there. Choose to see the benefit that you are receiving now, and understand that creation is not just starting now. This is a co-creation of all of you. It is a co-creation of all of you. And many of those that have been watching those violent movies, death-focused movies, these kinds of things, living in fear, buying guns, these beings have done it unconsciously. They didn't know the power. They don't know the power of their own thinking. They don't know the power of their own passion, because you have intentionally not been taught that you are powerful creators. This is why we have been telling you, you are powerful creators. Pay attention to what you're thinking. Pay attention to what you're feeling. It brings things into being. So don't panic now that everybody is scared of this virus. Those that are scared have been the ones that have been seeding the fear. They are already in that vibration. Those of you that have been changing your vibration will simply not be buying into the fear that is being blown around your globe at this time. We will return shortly.